This is the UX Institute podcast, and I'm Mark Swaine, founder of UXI. In this podcast, I interview UX and product leaders from around the globe. It's been a while. I'm back on the horse and working on a bunch of new episodes to launch over the coming months. Today, I'm sharing a conversation I had earlier this year with Matt Werchelinski from BrainHub's Tech Leadership Podcast. In this episode, Matt and I take a deep dive into my journey from UX foundations to venture leadership. I share my transition from UX design to product management to venture, and we explore how a strong UX background can transform your approach and product strategy. We also discuss the critical mistakes that startups often make in their early stages and examine how AI is reshaping product development execution. Whether you're a UX or product practitioner looking to expand into product management, a startup founder seeking to avoid common pitfalls, or a tech leader trying to understand the real impact of AI on your business, this episode is packed with actionable insights you won't want to miss. So let's jump in with Matt.
So let's start with the first question. When we recently met in Dublin, I noticed that you have pretty extensive experience with UX. So I think you even have the domain uxguy.com. They're talking about it that it's not related so much to your current role that you have. But I believe that this experience shaped you and helped you with the more of a business approach to the current role that you are having. Because you are more closer to the business and product, how this UX experience helped you and shaped you here.
Yeah, sure. There's quite a big story around all of that, but to try and keep it short, I acquired uxguy.com way back. It must have been 2012, 13 maybe time. And I had a website up for a long time and people kind of really got to know me. I was actually abroad at that point. I was in Toronto, New York, working across the US extensively as well. And I was working on a lot of UX projects back then, enterprise projects mainly. I was brought in as the UX lead. But, those roles and those projects and those startup projects that I worked across, as well as a lot of banking projects, were all kind of working as a UX lead on product. It was very early days. I mean, UX was around and user research and usability testing, of course, has been around for years. I was probably one of the only people practicing it way back as 2008 on projects with companies who were creating basic wireframes just to kind of represent something to talk about the project. So early days of it, mainly SaaS, 2013, 14 time, really it helped me shape up my exposure to so many different types of products, startups, medtech, fintech, and so many different business models that just the lens around UX that I had been doing for years just naturally morphed into product management. It was kind of just, they go hand in hand. Obviously, they're heavily interlinked. And you'll even find, the role of a product manager is heavily scattered across many companies in different roles and very immature also in a lot of companies where some PMs are doing the UX as well or guiding the UX. It's a massive mixed bag still out there. But it really helped me up to that point where I kind of morphed into a product role. I was acting as a product lead role as well with a lot of startups. It all just morphed over time into product. And now today I'm a head of product.
Speaking of being your head of product, you work at the Elkstone, which is really interesting company investing in the Irish ecosystem, I would say, in the Irish tech scene. And maybe you could talk about the responsibilities in your current role.
My current role, I'm working with probably the top VC company in Ireland, venture team in Ireland. We're a wealth management company and a venture team and real estate. The real estate arm of the business is incredible in terms of the projects and the funds they're building and they're executing across the island of Ireland. So I'm mainly focused on the wealth team and the venture team. My role as head of product is introducing new tech into old workflows. So we're cleaning up data. We are creating a new client experience, rebuilding CRM from the ground up, bringing the company on the journey with me, all stakeholders, which is one of the key parts of any role. Well, to me, it's the most fundamental role and activity of either a UX lead or a product lead is soft skills and communication and honing your ability to bring multiple key stakeholders on a very long, deep journey while spending a lot of budget to get the job done and convincing them of it. That is a single art skill of its own, which I've been honing for years in how I work with people. Yeah, so the current role is rebuilding the infrastructure in the org, introducing it and building a new SaaS investing platform as a service for clients. And also I support the venture team. I do a lot of heavy due diligence on new startup intake, new decks. I sit with a lot of startups. I go deep on their tech, their stack, go to market, product segment, pipeline approach, and, right through to conversations around how OpenAI is probably kill some of their startup within 18 months and how they're going to mitigate all of the pain that's coming. So I end up in a lot of heavy conversations with startups that way, but always coming at it with a product and UX lens, which VCs don't have.
I'm always interested in working culture, especially in tech, like how it is Ireland compared to, I don't know, UK, US. I had a lot of conversation with some leaders from the US, from Israel, from Germany. Like all of those countries are different in some kind of way, how they approach building the technology, how they approach building a product. And like for you as an insider and somebody who was working abroad, do you see like some major differences here?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not too sure what it's like in some other countries. I do know the US well, and the UK maybe, but startup culture here, I think there's a lot of activity in Ireland and it's really positive. Like I'm receiving decks weekly from people reviewing decks, new ideation. The culture's really good that way. We need more supports from the government, which is lacking due to probably a lot of lack of understanding their side of the prominence and importance and the waves of tech that are going to come and hit us, because Ireland will fall behind. I think we're trailing a little behind at this stage across Europe from latest stats I've been looking at, but we do need to up our game with deeper, bigger supports in Ireland for sure. I think culturally, there's really good activity. Ireland is a small place. Everyone knows each other, right? So all startups know the typical startup leaders and board directors in the country and who's doing what. And so you can't get away from that. I probably am fairly well known at this stage through not trying anyway my side, but it just naturally ekes out because we're small cohorts and groups and people want to talk to you. So I'm meeting new people all the time, looking at new product all the time. There's new stuff coming through regularly. It's really positive. It's really vibrant. It's really good, but it's not good enough. We need to be doing way more. We need to be going way faster to catch up with what's going on across Europe and the US.
Regarding your career, so you started on the UX side, you are focusing on a product, but I would say you are involved a lot in the investment side, and probably you have seen and evaluate a lot of startups. I'm just wondering from your perspective, like what common mistakes do you have, or do you see like within those startups when they are applying for money, like,
Yeah, there's so many there. It's a really good question because it can spread to every angle of the startup. So I've been working with B2B SaaS startups I've been mentoring them since about 2016, and I've been building B2B SaaS since about 2012, 13. And from the very early days when SaaS was really kicking off. It's funny, at this stage, after 10 years or more, I could write a small playbook on this, which I've been threatening to do, and release it because I think it would be hugely valuable. I've done a couple of master classes on this to large cohorts in Ireland around these mistakes and pitfalls that they face in their build and spend. So key things off the bat are inefficiency in their build, in their tech stack and their build. The normal story, which literally plays out verbatim, is that the startups kick in, they build some version of their core differentiation point in the software, the core feature or key workflows. It's built pretty shitty. That's okay. It's an MVP. It's supposed to be. Maybe after 18 months or 12 to 18 months, they have maybe 5, 7 key enterprise clients, or they have a few of them onboarded into the software. But what happens normally at that point is they realize with the feedback they're getting is that their software is built pretty bad, shabby. Clients are expecting much more faster. Their UX is incredibly weak. And what I've noticed all the time, which kind of kept a lot of my career going in my early days in SaaS, was that they have a tools down moment where they have to go and redesign most of the workflows. And that's where a UX lead consultant product person comes in, because they don't have the budget for a UX lead or a head of product or anything at that point. So I've spent a lot of my career redesigning SaaS platforms to what customers actually want. That's one pitfall that almost every startup I meet fall into. It means they could be building so much more efficiently from the start and avoiding all the spend later, but they're not educated enough to spot that. So that is number one. Number two would be customer design programs, meaning when they're kicking off with the features or workflows for their proposition, that they are partnering with at least 2 or 3 key customer types they've identified who they have convinced or incentivized in some way to come on the journey with them for the year or 18 months to build the first version of the software and get it out. And if you're not partnering with key customers, allowing the customers to come in and build the software with you, you're fucked early, basically. And an awful lot of startups don't do that. They do it at the end. Some startups I meet have not even done any usability testing with their key customers, which is incredible. They have to be told to do it, or they have to be, but even at this stage, 24, usability testing was a norm back in 2014 or 16. You still have startups today who are just plowing ahead. They're doing very little customer research, not building a customer design program, and they're pushing the product through in old-fashioned ways, which is incredible still today for me to see.
And you mentioned you are giving a lot of talks, and I recall when we last met in Dublin, you are mentioning that you are preparing yourself for a talk for the designers at LinkedIn. And it was especially crafted around the AI topic. And I'm just wondering, like, maybe some key points out of it, if you could mention, like, what have you about?
That was an interesting talk. When I do these keynotes and talks, and I've just done another one recently for a HR SaaS software event as well, where I got up to chat about AI as well. Yeah, the LinkedIn one was really good. There was great engagement, a really big crowd, a lot of engagement from product people and founders. My spiel for that talk and what I delivered and what I'm trying to communicate to a lot of cohorts out there is that building software today is not very hard. It's really fast. From a product design and UX lens, a lot of our workflows are going to go away faster than we understand or think. And I hope they do. And I hope that AI comes in and kills most of Figma and most of the pain that designers go through while laboring behind completely useless work in Figma because they spend so much of their time repeating same screens, same features, same workflows, same navigation patterns in the product, whatever it might be, that have already been done to death 1,000,000 times over by every single other B2B SaaS platform over there. There's nothing left to design, right? In some ways, you could look at it that way. This is my opinion on it, by the way. And there's not a whole left to design. Everything's done paradigm-wise. So just show the developers what you want and build it fast. Stop thinking about it. Stop laboring over pixel perfection. There's design systems off the shelf that will build this immediately in days for you. Just get rid of the Figma flow as much as you possibly can. Stop laboring in Figma over all these screens and workflows and repeating mobile versions and all this kind of crazy crap where days and weeks of work go. It is completely unnecessary. And I genuinely hope that with tooling stacks that are going to evolve like Galileo and others out there that are on the rise, that they are going to quash and knock off Figma and really allow AI from a prompt perspective to really pull together key workflows in seconds to hand over in some level of quality code dev ready wise to hand over to implement. We don't need to think about a lot of this much more. The parts that are going to come to the top over that work for designers to get better at is prompt articulation, of course, and strategy, getting deeper into UX strategy. in terms of how the screens or flows should work end to end, pre to post journeys, and how we upsell, scale, and monetize off those. That's where deeper, more important work time should be placed, not on laboring over buttons, cards, navigation rails, and all that sort of crap.
It reminds me like 2015 when I was starting my company, BrainLab, and we were doing a lot of software. I was surprised like how many times you could start over like on each project and develop like the sign up and login form and like remember your password. It's like, come on, it's like, yeah, like on the eighth project, do it from scratch. It doesn't make sense. It's a waste of time and money, right?
Yeah. It's a waste of time. It's days of a designer's work that is completely unnecessary, that is done to death everywhere. We all know the flow, the format. Why are you designing this? And that might sound quite negative towards the product designer's role as an example, but it's not at all trying to be negative at all. It's trying to shift that role eventually in the next 3 to 5 years to being much more strategic, much more being a director, directing the work with the developer, prompting, and getting much deeper into strategy, which is far more interesting than pushing pixels around the screen.
Visit uxinstitute.com to sign up to our new newsletter. UXI will be sharing best-in-class UX research practices as well as in-depth interview content so you can excel at your career in UX.
Speaking of the product itself, I think really important part of building the product is the good roadmap, good prioritization, especially for the startup, because you have so many things to do, like on your backlog, and it's really hard to manage it. And I'm wondering, in your case, how do you approach it? Do you have like your own, approach here or the lessons learned that you could share?
Road mapping is like, I've been through it many times in terms of roadmap management and backlog management around prioritized workload and features and use cases, etc. Building out a roadmap and backlog is absolutely critical for any team. If I meet startups, one of the first thing I ask the founders for CTO is their roadmap. I want to look at their roadmap. I want to look at what they're planning to achieve quarterly, where their time and spend on salaries are going per feature, per workload, what level of effort they're kind of putting towards particular feature development or workflow development. That's critical. And so one of the things in there with the roadmap as well is being very honest and clear about the actual effort required, because it wanes up and down constantly as you learn as you go. It's not that startups or even larger orgs are building roadmaps and they're set in stone. Roadmaps are supposed to change weekly. They're supposed to evolve. They're an ever-evolving piece of workload that you adhere to. So that's completely acceptable and absolutely should be the case, because you have new learnings weekly on the features you're building, bugs, issues, priorities, blockers that are going to stop or slow the roadmap or a particular feature that the team's developing. It's critical for the product leader on the team and whoever the CTO or director of dev management, whoever's involved in the startup or team, are meeting at least once to twice a week on roadmap, and they're prioritizing or reprioritizing or documenting against core backlog items around what the issues are, what the blockers are, what they have to deprioritize, because deeper investigation is needed around an API or whatever it might be. That is a constant workflow. And it's critical that all of the team are aligned and agree on that roadmap. And for VCs, we need to know that that's the case too, that the teams are heavily aligned on what's happening in the roadmap and that they're working on the right things throughout the right quarter to unlock growth, revenue, more pipeline, and to onboard more customers to get money in the bank account. And I always have to have a view of that world immediately with any startup. If they can't speak to that and they're floundering over that kind of speak, then you know they really have no roadmap or vision in their head as to what comes next, Lego brick-wise, bit by bit, to kind of get to where they're going.
I really like to speak about the controversial or contrarian decision, and I bet you have a lot of them in your backpack, but it's on your track record. So I believe that you could share some stories Like, do you recall any like this controversial or contrary decision that you have made on the product side or the startup side? Because you advise the startups to, like the Hansel from Ireland is one of them. Like maybe something like what was the impact of it? Like how it went?
Yeah, I can think of some examples where I've guided some startups in terms of rebuilding some of their core workflows in their software because the design system or framework they were building on, they could not maintain it and it was going to collapse on the floor, a couple of years later. To scale the right way, they had to redesign and reintroduce a whole new design system. That has happened quite a few times where I've had to really educate both the CTO and the product lead and the UX lead. This ain't going to scale. To unlock the kind of workflows based on your vision, you need to rebuild and scale in the right way because you're creating huge pain and mess both in Figma and in your dev stack. So that's always been a common contrarian pain point that they don't want to hear or they put off because they don't want to spend on it. So that's common. And look, I get that they don't want to because they're managing a very tight, slim seed budget to unlock growth and revenue. And it's a really hard balancing act as to what foot to put in front of the other first and why in the right way. That's incredibly hard for any founder. Founders are under incredible stress that way in terms of making the right decisions. So hats off to them to be able to manage and run that. But that would be a contrarian point always. Yeah, I've been through some experiences where I've ended up in long board sessions around some startups trying to repurpose their stack, remodel the software from a large enterprise one-off implementation per customer to a slimmed down self-serve version of the tool or the feature or the workflow to drive revenue growth. Founders don't want to hear it. They stick to their enterprise one-off sales that are taking them 18 months and 2 years to land to get money in the bank account, and they are burning through cash and killing the company. So I've been in lots of these awkward, painful conversations to convince and educate and show founders why they need to go a different route to not let the company get swallowed or their teams get swallowed by enterprise implementations. The money, the contracts look shiny, it looks great, but by the time those client types actually hit the button to go ahead on the deal, it could take 18 months. And they're waiting. Typically, it could be government-based contracts or it could be large private contracts that can take a year to get signed off, which happens all the time. There's nothing strange about that. And in the meanwhile, they are waiting for contracts to be signed for large sums of money to come in to keep the company running, and things get really stressful fast. So I've been through a lot of awkward conversations like that, trying to demonstrate the CTOs in 2.5 months, how can we slim down your stack to a slim version of the core workflow and offer it as a self-serve sign-up model to drive some revenue or growth. Go fish, go think about it, come back and let's talk to keep the company alive, right? But those would be some examples that I'm in regularly. And also just the contrarian part, with the amount of decks that come across my desk, obviously every single deck has AI in the title. It's AI based in some way. It's not that I'm getting fed up or receiving AI decks, but I am getting more hard on the speak and feedback I give back to the workflows or the quality or value of the workflows that they're proposing in their proposition to build, and the level of value or efficiencies it will actually create for their users or customers is usually much less than they're envisioning. And customers don't see the value the same way the founders do. And so if you're going to execute in AI in some way in a SaaS tool of sorts, whether it's automation or generative, there needs to be deep value or change in behavior of what they're building to demonstrate the value back to use the AI to the actual customer base they're going after. And that's really hard. Unfortunately, a lot of founders get mixed up as well between automation and generation. AI is not building a recommendation engine or slimming a workflow through automating some of it. That's not AI. That's just automation and slimming down using recommendation engine based logic or rules around particular workflows to speed up a workflow. That's not AI. Generative workflow replacing a feature or workflow in a particular way is where the value is where the system is doing the actual work for the user. That's AI. And unfortunately, a lot of decks and founders and new startups are placing too much hope on automation when there's very little value in that.
Mark, great. Thank you for the insights and a great talk today. I really appreciate it and wish you luck with the next investments.
Yeah, thank you very much, Matt. It was great to come on and chat.
If you've learned anything from this episode, I ask one small favor. Please leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or share this episode across your networks. Both really help the growth of the podcast and will allow me to continue to secure amazing guests that will part their insight with you. Thanks for listening to the official UX Institute podcast, and talk to you next time.